Greetings. Today we continue with part 2 of preservation by the word. We begin today in verse 58. I entreated thy favor with my whole heart. Be merciful unto me according to thy word. This word entreated, as it is found in the King James, from 02470, is only used this one time in the 119th Psalm. However, it is used over 70 times in the Old Testament. It is a minor usage which renders it as an entreaty or a prayer to God. However, the major usage infers the causes which prompt such requests, namely sickness, infirmity, sickness to the point of death, and grief. David states that his wholehearted entreaty concerns God's favor, of which it roots means to ask one face to face. When we consider these two facts together, we should understand that David is declaring, without God's attention and help, he has no hope of a positive outcome. Then David requests, be merciful unto me according to thy word. Now he has used this word for merciful previously in the 119th Psalm and verse 29, where it was translated by the word graciously. And again, he will use it in verse 132, where it says, look thou upon me and be merciful unto me, as thou used to do unto those that love thy name. Or we will use the word usually, as you usually do to those that love thy name. Which brings us to verse 59, I thought on my ways and turned my feet unto thy testimonies. This word thought is our word fabricate, or it means to fabricate. Only here in this verse of Psalm 119, but again over 120 times elsewhere in the Old Testament. When negative thinking was in view, it was rendered devised or thought evil. When artistic thinking was in view, it was rendered by the phrase cunning work. But when normal rationalizing and reconciling of one's mind with God's word is in view, it's required to be rendered by the accounting terms of reckon or account. And all of the uses of this word, it is the use of one's imagination, which is in view. Whether the imagination is being used to devise evil or to create things for good purposes or for rationalizing facts. I think David is acknowledging the truth that's later recorded in Jeremiah 17 and verse 9, where it says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? How often do we believe we're on the right course that God has for our lives, and yet his word reveals that we've strayed off that course, and we are in desperate need of a correction, as David declares that his was. In verse 60, he says, I have made haste and delayed not to keep thy commandments. This verse 60 is a great example of Hebrew poetry. Meter and rhyme are not used in Hebrew as in English poetry. Whether we find the repetition of the same thought, either positively and or negatively. I made haste. That means to hurry with excitement and enjoyment. I delayed not, to hesitate with reluctance. It's a curious observation that David's hurry with excitement and hesitation is contrasted with reluctance as the opposite direction in the normal human tendencies. ASAP, A-S-A-P, as soon as possible. So if we merge the thoughts of David from verses 59 and 60 together, we should conclude that as soon as David was convicted, he set about to correct the breach. Again, he's referring to the protective hedge that's spoken of in Job 1:10, where the devil says, hast thou not made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. The fiery darts of the wicked, as they're called in Ephesians 6:16, can be the cause which breach this defense if we fail to use the shield of faith to quench them. It says, above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. Jesus taught in the model prayer that we should ask daily to be delivered from the evil one in Matthew 6:13. In 1 Peter 5, verses 8 and 9, Peter, as an old man, had apparently never forgotten the night on which Satan, quote, sifted him as wheat. And he's still trying to strengthen the brethren on this issue as Jesus commanded him to do. He says, be sober. That doesn't mean undrunk. It means to be sober-minded. Be vigilant, be ever watchful, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world, that is, in this world system.